Our weekly Krishna book reading. Let's first offer Mangalacharan. Om Agyanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakammalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sandubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangam langayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram. Hare Krishna. Sing the beautiful song of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Krishna 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 He Krishna 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 He Krishna 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 Raksha Mam Krishna 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 Pahi Mam Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Raksha Mam Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Pahi Mam. Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani Ki Jai, Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Krishna Book Ki Jai, Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna. Let's continue with our reading of the prayers by the demigods. It's so exciting, it's so ecstatic to see all of you back in the temple. Temple is open fully now. So we welcome you back to our real home. Srila Prabhupada once, when he goes for a morning walk and he comes back, I believe it's in Juhu. So as Prabhupada was coming close to the temple, there was one person who was asking Srila Prabhupada, Swamiji, why have you raised such big walls surrounding the temple? It feels as if the temple is jail. So that, right around a jail, they may have these big raised walls that would prevent the prisoners from escaping. Prabhupada smiles and he says, what you say is right, but actually prison is outside. Real world is inside. So Prabhupada says this world is actually, yes, it is separating the prison, which is the material world, Dukalyam Ashashvatam, from the temple. So it is so wonderful to see all of you. Shri Radha Gopinath, they are very, very happy to see all of you. So let's resume with much more renewed vigor. It's been almost a year. Last year, what he was telling, it was almost a year, just a week short of a year. Last year, 20th of March, we had to close, and I think this year we opened it on the 15th of March. It's almost like just 5 days short. After 360 days, we are fully opening the temple. So it's so wonderful to see all of you. And as I said, Gopinath is definitely much more doubly, triply, unlimitedly happy. Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan Ki Jai. So let's continue. So we are in page 31 of Krishna book. So we are discussing the prayers of the demigods, Garbhastuti. It's page 31 of this edition of Krishna book. At present, this is the second paragraph. At present, the demigods prayed, the Supreme Lord Krishna is appearing just for the maintenance of this manifestation. Actually, the supreme cause is one, but less intelligent persons, being deluded by the three modes of material nature, see that the material world is manifested through different causes. Those who are intelligent can see that the cause is one, Krishna. As it is stated in Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sarva Karana Karanam. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the cause of all causes. Brahma is the deputed agent for creation. Vishnu is the expansion of Krishna for maintenance. And Lord Shiva is the expansion of Krishna for dissolution. So here, Srila Prabhupada explaining the prayers by the demigods, he says that the supreme cause is one. Prabhupada, once in a morning walk, one devotee asks Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Krishna says that we should always be remembering him. We should always see everything as him, everything in connection to him. How can we understand? So are we supposed to see, the devotee explains, if you see, let's say, two objects or two trees, you see one Krishna here, one Krishna there, and the space in between as another Krishna, merging the other two aspects. So this is the question, and Srila Prabhupada, using basic common sense logic, Prabhupada actually explains. Prabhupada says, pointing at his shoes, whose shoes are these? Then he says, it's yours, Srila Prabhupada's. Then Prabhupada says, whose stick is this? Then the devotee says, it is your stick, Srila Prabhupada. Likewise, Prabhupada says, whose hat is this? Yours, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada says, that's how you see everything in connection to Krishna. Javara Sangame Deki. It's mentioned, whatever Stavara Jangame Deki, whatever which is movable, immovable, that we actually see. The pure devotee always sees everything in connection to Krishna. So Prabhupada says, just like you see, take each of these different objects that we see in connection of the owner. So similarly, Prabhupada says, Krishna, Ishavasyam Idam Sarvam, he owns everything. So whatever we see, if we see everything in connection to Krishna, Prabhupada says, that is remembering Krishna. So here, the demigods, they explain that generally there is this tendency for anything when we, Prabhupada, in many morning walks you will see, when the scientists, when the disciples actually take the role of scientists when they argue. In one instance, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that one person, one businessman comes to meet Srila Prabhupada in India, and Prabhupada asks, so what business do you do? He says, I do glassware business. Prabhupada says, that's very nice. Where do you get the glass from? Then he says, silica. Where do you get that from? Then he says, from the sand, Swamiji. Prabhupada says, wonderful. Who owns all this sand? So if we keep questioning everything, finally it will come to just one simple answer. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Generally, in the analysis of science, we tend to see just the immediate cause, completely forgetting about the remote cause. How wrong would it be to attribute the ownership of a huge building to the builder rather than the one who actually financed that building? That's how wrong it would be to go with this reductionist theory, to say, to find everything material to actually relate it to one other material cause. That is true. Just like it's the builder who is actually building any skyscraper or anything, but actually who owns it? When we say the builder will go, he'll move on with this next business. After some time, if somebody asks this question, who does this building belong to? Whose building is this? Then naturally we'll say it's the owner. It's not the guy who actually built it. That's his profession. He was employed by the owner of the building or the future owner of the building. He's the one who financed it. So same way, when we take anything, when we study anything from a materialistic, analytical perspective, it is good to understand what the material cause is, but that's just the immediate cause. What is the remote cause or the original cause? It's always Krishna. So that's what demigods here are saying. Our dear Lord, the demigods prayed, it is very difficult to understand your eternal form or personality. People in general are unable to understand your actual form. Therefore, you are personally descending to exhibit your original eternal form. Somehow, people can understand the different incarnations of your Lordship, but they are puzzled to understand the eternal form of Krishna with two hands moving among human beings, exactly like one of them. Understanding Krishna is very, very difficult because Krishna plays his role so perfectly. Gopyadade tvai kritagasi damatavad yaste dashashru kalilanjana sambramaksham. So Shalilanjana Sambramaksham. So he says the prayer of Kunti Maharani, she actually sings that, oh my Lord, on one hand, Yadbibeti Gopyadate Tvai Kritaga Siddhamata Vadyaste Dasashra Shalilanjana Sambramaksham Vaktram Viniya Bhava Bhavanaya Stitasya Samam Vimohayati Birabi Yadbibeti. She says that, oh my Lord, on one hand, the fear personified, he is very scared of you, shivering. But on the other hand, one who is calling or one who is causing fear for the fear personified, if somebody looks at you, you are shivering, looking at the tiny stick in the hand of Mother Yashoda. Now, this is very puzzling to me, like that Kunti Maharani says. So, the acts of Krishna is very, very puzzling to many, extremely. In fact, by the influence of Yogamaya, sometimes even the elderly Gopas or even Yashodamaya for that matter, sometimes this thought do cross their mind that, is this the Supreme Bhagavan? But then Yashodamaya thinks, it can't be, because whenever there's lightning, this little boy is so scared, he is coming, hiding behind me, holding my sari. How can he be Supreme Lord? She just laughs off such a thought and she just goes on. So same way, Nanda Baba also, he also thinks that way, that if they don't protect Krishna, then somebody may actually come and take him away. Some insect may come and harm him. Krishna may actually starve. This is what they were actually thinking. There is one beautiful pastime actually of Shiva. Recently there was Mahashivratri that was observed. Now Lord Shiva, once when he hears about the appearance of Lord Krishna, he comes there to see Lord Krishna, baby Krishna. So he comes to Yashodamaya and he tells to Yashodamaya that, I want to see your little baby. But then Lord Shiva, initially he thinks, should I go in disguise? Because Lord Shiva has got, Prabhupada actually says, Lord Shiva, eternally he worships Lord Sankarshana, and to worship his Lord as a token or as a way of offering his respect, he always wraps his body with snake, you can actually see. So Prabhupada says that snake actually represents Sankarshana. So Supreme Lord Shiva, he always worships Lord Sankarshana. So Lord Shiva, once he thinks, should I actually change my form and go? But then he realizes, this is my Supreme Lord, I better go as myself. So he just comes with this Trishula, with snakes, with the deer skin and ashes is made all over his body, and then he comes and then he calls out for anyone in home, and then Yashodamaya comes out, and when Lord Shiva actually tells Yashodamaya, I want to see your son, Yashodamaya says, no, you can't see, he may be scared looking at the snake, please stay away. And then Yashodamaya offers, you definitely need some clothing, I can give you some clothing. Then Shiva says, no, I don't want. Then Yashodamaya says, definitely I can offer you some nice boga. So she offers so many things. Shiva says, nah, I'm not interested in any of that. I want to come here and take darshan of your little Lalla. Yashodamaya says, not at all possible, because definitely your form is little scary. My little baby will get scared when he looks at you. So then Lord Shiva thinks, what's the point? If I can't take darshan of the Supreme Lord, I can't force such a darshan. If Supreme Lord is pleased, then he may give me darshan. Thinking this way, he just goes to the bank of Yamuna, sits there and chants his japa. Meanwhile, Krishna, he feels very sorry for Lord Shiva. Yashodamaya is also a great devotee. Lord Shiva is also a great devotee. So then, baby Krishna, he started to cry. And then everyone tries to pacify, but nobody could actually make baby Krishna stop crying. So then finally, Yashodamaya actually tells them, maybe I might have committed some aparad. That's why baby Krishna is crying. Can somebody please go and bring the Baba? Baba is an elderly saintly person, which is Lord Shiva here. So then they go bring Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva becomes very happy And then Yashoda Maya then gives baby Krishna to Lord Shiva. Then as Lord Shiva is holding baby, Krishna stopped crying and he's smiling at both of them. Of course, Yashoda Maya didn't know that baby Krishna is the Supreme Lord. So with the Vatsalya Bhava, with that mood of a parent in their service to Krishna, they never thought Krishna as the Supreme Lord. However, Srila Prabhupada says Supreme Lord is Ishvara Parama Krishna. In one morning walk, Srila Prabhupada, one devotee actually asks Srila Prabhupada, taking the role of an atheistic person. He says, who you call as Krishna, or how you call Krishna as God, that is not true. Then Prabhupada argues back as the Vaishnavacharya. He is, okay, if Krishna is not the Supreme Lord, then who is the Supreme Lord? Then this disciple who is taking the role of an atheist, he says, we will figure that out soon. Then Prabhupada says, no problem. You keep finding, until you find who the origin is, I'll keep worshipping Krishna. When you find out, then we'll come and talk again. Like that Prabhupada says. So, point we need to understand is information is here. Understanding Krishna is not at all easy. That's the point which the demigods are saying. Understanding any other form of Krishna is easy, but understanding the Supreme Lord as a Swayam Bhagavan, when he comes as the 200 Shama Sundar form, that's very, very difficult. Prabhupada says in one place, sometimes this thought crosses our mind that wouldn't it be nice if we were born 5,000 years ago? In all likelihood, we might have been around 5,000 years ago. If somebody asks me, is this your first birth? 100% not. All of us intuitively know, definitely, there is a monkey there that we see, there is a dog there that we see, even a worm. We could have been any one of them. So there is a very good possibility that we were around 5,000 years ago. But there are instances where animals got attracted to Krishna, plants got attracted to Krishna, even water gets attracted to Krishna. We don't get attracted. We didn't get attracted. So Prabhupada actually says, even when Krishna was around, Prabhupada says barely 30-40 people know that he is Supreme Lord. Not many people know that he is Supreme Lord. So we may think that if only we can see Krishna. There is one pastime in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada would often quote this pastime to say how determined Tattenukampam Susamikshamano Bunjana Evatma Kritam Vipakam, how determined one should be when it comes to practicing the path of bhakti, and how confident one should be in the Lord's mercy. To cite that, Prabhupada quotes this pastime in one class, and there is the same pastime that's given in Chaitanya Charitamrita also, you'll see. So once Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he tells to Mukunda Datta, I don't want to see Mukunda hereafter, because he's going, on one hand he's coming associating with all the Vaishnavas, but on the other hand he just goes and associates with everyone, even Mayavadis also. Now Mukunda Datta is a very simple Vaishnav. Whoever invites him, he'll just go. Of course, that doesn't make him any low in his standard, but that is his all-merciful nature. As a simple Vaishnav, he'll just go anywhere everywhere in any assembly. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't like that in this particular Leela, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells him that I don't want to see him. So then Mukunda Datta goes there outside, and then he is very morose. Then the devotees, on behalf of Mukunda Datta, they come and plead to Lord Chaitanya, my Lord, he is your associate. If you reject him, where will he go? Then they ask him, my Lord, when can Mukunda Datta come back? Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, well, it will take millions of births. As soon as they come and tell this news to Mukunda Datta, very morosely they actually tell this instruction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mukunda, Lord Chaitanya said you can actually go back to the Lord only after millions of births. As soon as Mukunda hears this, he immediately jumps up in ecstasy and he started to dance, much to the amazement of the devotees. And then Mukunda explains that he is very, very happy, he is very jubilant, and then he says, thank you very much for giving me such great news. Now the devotees are puzzled and they go back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and they tell Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu, we conveyed your news to him, but we expected him to go completely dejected, but instead of that he is actually dancing in ecstasy. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiles and he says, bring him in. And then Mukunda Datta explains that it doesn't matter. If I can't see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu now, at least there is a guarantee I will see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in another 10 million births. So that's a cause of rejoice. So that's why, cause of joy, and that's why I'm rejoicing. So Srila Prabhupada says that should be the attitude, that we are following this path of bhakti, that, and just like how a son or a daughter would rightfully claim or inherit the property of their parents. So similar in due course of time. So similarly in bhakti also, as we start to practice, Prabhupada says in due course of time we will also get the mercy of the Lord. That confidence we should have. This is how Lord Brahma actually praised that. So here in this pastime where Mukunda Datta is actually telling about how happy he is to know, at least even after 10 million births, he can actually see the Lord. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu feels so pleased with this conviction, and then he says like, all right, bring him in. When he comes in, he offers a beautiful prayers. The reason for this pastime, which I'm narrating, is there he says, oh my Lord, even Kamsa saw you. Every demon who were killed by you in Vrindavan, they saw you. What good is this sight? Unless one's heart is purified, unless one has love in one's heart, how much can one see you? So this is the prayer of Mukunda Datta. So we can take that instruction of Mukunda also to our heart, that Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. We have to have bhakti for Krishna. We need to pray to Krishna, my Lord, please give me bhakti. Generally, if we see in materialistic terms, if you want to love a person, you can't go to the person and say, please make me love you. That's not possible. Unless the person is actually attracting the second person can't actually love the first person. It's not possible. You can't go and ask them, you can't artificially bring it about. However, if we take in Krishna Bhakti, Prabhupada explains that bhakti is something that is already with us. Bhakti Sanjayate Bhakti, bhakti is already inside us. Nitya Krishna. Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunai. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunai. Shravanadi Suddha Chitte Kare Uday. Which means this bhakti is always in our heart, in the heart of the heart of the heart of the soul. And this bhakti in its dormant state, currently we are not able to experience it. It hasn't manifested. However, Shravanadi Suddha Chitte, if we continue to follow this Navida Bhakti, this Sadhana Bhakti, and Prabhupada explains that's like unripe mango. If we continue to do, over a period of time, this unripe mango will become ripe. Over a period of time, this bhakti that is inherent within us will start to manifest. And Prabhupada would often say the example of a little child, a toddler, managing to walk. Just about. And Prabhupada would say this ability to walk is within the child as soon as he is born or as soon as she is born. But then over a period of time, that potency to walk slowly starts to get manifested. So same way, inherently all of us have bhakti in our heart, but by practicing sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, by hearing, chanting, following four regulative principles, doing devotional service, everything, slowly this bhakti will come out of us and then it will manifest. Now unless we have bhakti, unless we have our eyes tinged with that ointment of love, as Lord Brahma explains in Brahma Samhita, it's impossible to see Krishna. This is Mukunda Datta's instruction to us, that seeing Krishna doesn't mean you just go there and see him. That is one way of taking darshan. Like we come to temple, we take darshan of Radha Gopinath. That's their causeless mercy. But we want to stay connected to Radha Gopinath. We want to understand what the will of Radha Gopinath is. We want to understand so we can actually serve them nicely. Knowing is one thing, but understanding is completely different, So we have to take these instructions of demigods wherein they say understanding any other form of Lord is very easy, but understanding Krishna is extremely difficult. But Krishna himself actually lets out the secret in Bhagavad Gita. Bhaktya mama bijanati yavan yaschatmi tatvatah. So simply by doing devotional service, unalloyed devotional service, unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service, doing that Tivra Bhakti, that alone qualifies one to understand about Krishna, or rather that alone attracts the mercy of Krishna. Sri Krishna Karshani. It attracts even the Supreme Lord, and the Supreme Lord then makes himself understandable by the practicing bhakta. So here, oh my Lord, it is very difficult to understand your eternal form or personality. People in general are unable to understand your actual form. Therefore, you are personally descending to exhibit your original eternal form. Somehow, people can understand the different incarnations of your Lordship, but they are puzzled to understand the eternal form of Krishna with two hands moving among human beings exactly like one of them. That confuses all of us. This eternal form of your Lordship gives ever-increasing transcendental pleasure to the devotees, but for the non-devotees, this form is very dangerous. Prabhupada would often give this example of, somebody who is an atheist may not actually accept God, but you can't deny. Either, Prabhupada says, either you come to your senses and understand the existence of God, or you meet God in the form of your death. So nobody can say, I don't believe in death. They have to. If somebody thinks that no God is in control, fair enough, then prove that you are in control by controlling death. So even that is not possible. Even I remember there was one caricature that actually said, God doesn't believe in atheists, like that. So even in fact, to define who an atheist is, you need God. Correct? One who don't believe in who? God. Otherwise, even atheists don't have any existence. So here, understanding about the Supreme Lord, especially in his 200 form, it's very, very hard. We see in Brahma Vimohan Leela how when Krishna actually came holding yogurt rice, and Mother Yashoda, she thinks Krishna is her little child. He can't handle any spices at all. So she puts nice fruits with yogurt rice, and Krishna is holding, taking it from his friend's tiffin box also, and then holding in his hand. And it's mentioned Brahma could actually see in his left hand first of all, and secondly Brahma could see the yogurt rice coming in between his fingers. Little kids, when they try to hold, they can't hold things properly. So when Brahma saw it, he thought like, impossible. This can't be my Supreme Lord. So Krishna is very confusing, and he takes great joy in putting devotees into illusion. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is very pleasing to the sadhus, paritranaya sadhunam. But this form is very dangerous for the demons, because Krishna also descends to kill the demons. That is the catch for the demons. They can keep on denying Krishna's existence. However, what they can't deny is when Krishna gives them the blow of death. So he is therefore simultaneously pleasing to the devotees and dangerous to the demons. When Krishna dances with the gopis in Ras Leela, you will see at the dead of the night, when Krishna is actually dancing, one who is a devotee looks at that instance of Krishna dancing with the gopis, and the devotee feels, when will that day come when I also would be able to dance with Krishna? So this is mode of devotee. But if a demon looks at it, then what does the demon actually think about? Demon is actually looking, and the demon is thinking, didn't I say Krishna is a bad guy? Look at him. Look at what he is doing. It's the same act, but it is evoking bhakti, the deeper emotions of bhakti in the heart of devotees. It's the same act that is actually evoking envy in the heart of demon. Krishna can simultaneously please both. Whatever anyone wants, Krishna will give. If somebody wants Krishna, Krishna gives himself. If somebody wants to fight with Krishna, Krishna gives that also. Like we see, Mushtika, Chanur, everyone. So here Prabhupada says simultaneously Krishna is very pleasing, but then he is extremely dangerous. Just like Prabhupada says, cat, when it is carrying its kitten in its mouth, that is shelter for the kitten. Have you seen? The kitten would be dangling without doing much work, happily getting transported from one place to the other. But Prabhupada says, but on the other hand, if the same cat is holding a rat in between its jaws, then Prabhupada says that is death. Same act, but two different effects completely. So Prabhupada gives that one here. Our dear lotus-eyed Lord, this is page 32 of this edition of a Krishna book. Our dear lotus-eyed Lord, you are the source of pure goodness. There are many great sages who simply by samadhi or transcendently meditating upon your lotus feet and thus being absorbed in your thought have easily transformed the great ocean of nations created by the material nature into no more than the water in a calf's hoof print. There are quite a few verses that mention about how by taking shelter of Krishna, this ocean of material existence, which is so big, gets reduced to the size of water that a calf's hoof print can actually hold, which means it becomes very tiny. Tvayambujaksha kilatsattvadamni samadhina veshita chetaseke tvatpadapotena bhavat mahatkritena kurvanti govatsa padam bhavabdim. That's this verse. Samashritaya pada pallava plavam mahatpadam punya yasho murari bhavambudir vatsa padam. Vatsa is calf's hoof print. Swayam samutirya sudustaram diman bhavarnavam bimam adabra saurudha Bhavat padamboruhana vamatrate nihaya yata sadanugraho bhavan. This is also Garbhastuti. So there also it's mentioned, as soon as the devotees, they take shelter of your lotus feet, my Lord, this whole ocean of material existence gets reduced to the size of calf's hoof print. So that's the verse which the demigods are actually mentioning here. You are the source of pure goodness. There are many great sages who simply by samadhi or transcendently meditating upon your lotus feet and thus being absorbed in your thought have easily transformed the great ocean of nations created by the material nature into no more than the water in a calf's hoof print, which means it becomes very easy to cross over. Very, very easy. The purpose of meditation is to focus the mind upon the personality of Godhead, beginning from his lotus feet. Simply by meditation on the lotus feet of the Lord, great sages cross over this vast ocean of material existence without difficulty. O self-illuminated one, the great saintly persons who have crossed over the ocean of nations by the help of the transcendental boat of your lotus feet have not taken away that boat. It is still lying on this side. Because as soon as somebody gets on the boat, then immediately the water gets reduced. So then why would they need the boat now anymore? Which means the boat here refers to the process of taking shelter of hearing, chanting Navvidha Bhakti. So this boat, whoever gets in, as soon as they get in the boat, the ocean gets reduced to such a small size, to the size of a calf's hoof print. So then immediately they get off the boat, but the boat is still here, which means they have left behind this process of Krishna consciousness. That's what it means. This is this verse. Swayam samutirya sudustaram diman bhavarnamam bimam adabra sauruta bhavat padamboruhana avamatrite nihaya yata. Nihaya means they are giving it, which means they followed this path of Krishna consciousness, but it's not that after crossing they just took away the process. The process is still here. Anybody can come and take shelter. That's what it means. There is another verse actually Krishna says in Uddhava Gita section 11th canto. Nirdeha madhyam sulabham sudurlabham plavam sukalpam gurukarnadaram mayanukulena bhavaspateritam puman bhavabdim nataret satmaha. That's also there. Krishna says this whole human body is considered to be a big ship, like a boat ship. Guru Karnadaram, the captain of this ship is Guru, which is the spiritual master. Maya anukulena Nabasvateritam Mayanukulena Nabasvateritam Puman Bhavabdim Nataretsa Atmaha. Mayanukulena means all these instructions which I have given, which is Krishna telling to Uddhava, which means all the instructions which we see in Krishna book, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, all the scriptures which Krishna has actually given. Mayanukulena Nabasvateritam, which means they are all the favorable wind. So you don't need to row the boat so much. The wind itself will actually carry. So, and the Guru is the captain of that ship. Now, despite having such a beautiful ship with a good captain and favorable circumstance, Mayanukulena Nabasvaterit Puman Bhavabdim Nataretsa Atmaha. If someone who after coming into human form of life doesn't take advantage of these three facilities, which is the ship, the captain of the ship, as well as the favorable winds that's actually pushing the ship in the proper direction. If somebody can't take advantage of these three, Nataretsa Atmaha, how else can we call that person other than a killer of the soul? Atmaha, even though the soul is na hanyate hanyamane sharira, nobody can kill the soul. Here what it means is Atmaha means one who has failed in the mission of the human form of life. In other words, one who has wasted, one who has killed the soul, killed the opportunity for the soul to go back to the spiritual world or to develop Krishna Bhakti. That's what it means. So this analogy, you will see it appears again and again in different parts of Bhagavatam, different sections you will see. So the great saintly persons, after crossing over the ocean of nations by the help of the transcendental boat of your lotus feet, here the boat is the lotus feet, have not taken away that boat. It is still lying on this side. The process is still there. The lotus feet, which is the boat in this verse, it's also given. If one takes a boat to cross over a river, the boat also goes with one to the other side of the river. And so when one reaches the destination, how can the same boat be available to those who are still on this side? To answer this difficulty, the demigods say in their prayer that the boat of the Lord's lotus feet is not taken away. The process is not taken away. The lotus feet of the Lord is also not taken away. The devotees still remaining on this side are able to pass over the ocean of material nature, because the pure devotees do not take the boat with them when they cross the river. When one simply approaches the boat, the whole ocean of the material nations is reduced to the size of the water in a calf's hoof print. So as soon as somebody approaches the boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, the ocean immediately reduces. Then they easily cross over. They just jump and they go. So the boat is still here. So whoever approaches the boat, very magical boat of the lotus feet of the Lord, whoever approaches the boat, they are immediately blessed with having the ocean of material existence reduced immediately. So they will easily cross over. Therefore, the devotees do not need to take the boat to the other side. They simply cross the ocean immediately. Because the great saintly persons are compassionate toward all conditioned souls, the boat is still lying on this side. In other words, one can meditate upon the lotus feet of the Lord at any time, and by so doing, one can cross over the great ocean of material existence. So here, boat refers to the lotus feet of the Lord. Simply by meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord, simply by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Simply by taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, one can easily cross over this ocean of material existence. Meditation means concentration upon the lotus feet of the Lord. Lotus feet indicate the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is one very strong logic of Srila Prabhupada, which you would see he uses it again and again. In one place, Prabhupada says, lotus feet. Feet means Lord is a person. So easy. Prabhupada sometimes would say Bhagavan. Van is a suffix that's used for personalities only. Satyavan, one who has truth. Dhanavan, one who has wealth. Bhagavan, one who has. Prabhupada says all the different opulences, beauty, strength, wealth, fame, knowledge, renunciation, Aishwaryasya, Samagrasya, Viryasya, Yashashasya, Jnana, Vairagya, Yoshchava, Sannam, Bhaga Itingana. Vishnu Purana says that. So Van means one who is a Atmavan, Dhanavan, Vidyavan, one who has knowledge. So Van means, Prabhupada says it's a person. So similarly, Padam Bhujadvaya, we say lotus feet. So Prabhupada says feet means the Supreme Lord is a person. How can somebody have feet if they are not person? If you think about it, you will understand this is a very simple but very powerful logic of Srila Prabhupada. Lotus feet means the Supreme Lord is a person. So Prabhupada says lotus feet indicate the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But those who are impersonalists do not recognize the lotus feet of the Lord, and therefore the object of meditation is something impersonal. The demigods express their mature verdict that persons who are interested in meditating on something void or impersonal cannot cross over the ocean of nations. Such persons are simply imagining that they have become liberated. O Lotus-eyed Lord, their intelligence is contaminated because they fail to meditate upon the lotus feet of your Lordship. As a result of this neglectful activity, the impersonalists fall down again into the material way of conditioned life, although they may temporarily rise to the point of impersonal realization. Impersonalists undergo severe austerities and penances to merge themselves into the Brahman effulgence or impersonal Brahman existence, but their minds are not free from material contamination. They have simply tried to negate the material ways of thinking. That does not mean that they have become liberated. Thus they fall down. Bhaktivedanta Purna Maharaj in one class he gives a nice analogy about impersonalists. So Prabhupada here he says, we were discussing this point before, how every other spiritual path except Bhakti Yoga, they have a shelf life. They have a certain goal in mind. Once somebody attains that goal, they give up that process straight away. However, when we say Bhagavatam, we say Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. The purpose of Bhagavatam is to keep on reading Bhagavatam. The purpose of reading Bhagavatam is to keep on reading Bhagavatam. The purpose of chanting Hare Krishna is to keep on chanting Hare Krishna. In other words, the means and the end, the process and the goal, they both are the same. So in pure devotional service, what do somebody do? Somebody keeps on chanting. In the beginning level, neophyte level, what do somebody do? Somebody tries with the difficulty to practice chanting Hare Krishna, again Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. But the same activity becomes easy as somebody keeps on progressing. But here, Prabhupada says, on the other hand, if you take impersonalists, first of all, Krishna himself says it's a very difficult process to follow. Even if somebody manages to go with impersonalism, they have simply negated the material activity. In other words, imagine if somebody comes and asks someone, how are you? They say, yeah, I'm doing good. Are you happy? I have no problem. Now, having no problem doesn't equate to ecstatic, unlimited Anandam Buddhivardhanam. So, impersonal Brahman realization is simply absence of difficulty. That's all. But it is very boring. Because there is no interaction at all. Soul by nature, Prabhupada explains in Bhagavad Gita, soul by nature is very, very active, even in conditioned state. What to speak of liberated state? In conditioned state also, we can't sit idle in one place. We simply can't. We have to keep doing something. Even we may think, I will sit in meditation. No, but mentally we are still incurring karma. Mentally we can incur karma. In fact, even if you take the Puranas, they actually explain what consequence you have to face by doing an activity mentally, by doing an activity verbally, by doing an activity spiritually. Because thoughts become words, words become deeds. So even that bija, the seed of an action actually starts from the mind only. Dayato Visayan Pumsa, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter. So simply by meditation, everything starts while contemplating the objects of senses. That's where everything starts. Like if you come across some stories, you will see in news, so many, could be some terrorist, some murderer, somebody. And then after some analysis, they would actually publish the report. Actually, they got influenced by such and such person or such and such event that actually happened in their life, and that really disturbed them mentally, and then how they went through. You'll come across the stories like that. So same way, everything starts with in a mental platform only. So thoughts do create karma. Even Vaishnava Aparad, if you see, Vaishnava Aparad also can be done with Deha Vak Buddhi. By mind, one can actually offend a devotee. By words, one can offend a devotee. By physically also. By deeds, by actions also, one can offend a devotee. So, that's what Prabhupada is explaining. So, if somebody is going to impersonal Brahman, they would be there. They won't have any disturbance. But at the same time, mind will be craving. The soul will be craving to do activity, but there is nothing. You look this side and that side, everyone will be sitting still. You will feel so bored very easily. So Prabhupada actually explains here, so if somebody manages to go there also, this is not going to help them much because there's a shelf life there. After some time, Prabhupada says, first of all, they are in this world, they could have done some activity, but they take the path of Jnana Yoga and they say, what's the point in working? So let me just sit and let me just read. And they read, and Prabhupada says, read all the Shastras, and Prabhupada says, then they slowly qualify themselves to go to Brahman realization platform, and then finally they go to that Brahman. But then once they reach there, now they feel very bored. Why? Because there is no activity now. Then Prabhupada says, then they give up that, they come down, and the very same activity which they gave up before they took up Jnana Yoga the previous life, then Prabhupada says, because they are so much craving for activity, as soon as they come down, they immediately get involved in some philanthropic activity. So Prabhupada says, instead of that, they could have easily performed Bhakti Yoga, do some activity, and then go back to spiritual world where they can continue to do spiritual activity, rather than initially stopping from any physical activity, trying to cultivate knowledge, which is very dry process, and then they go to Brahman realization, feel bored, again come down, and this time they just go with the philanthropic activity again, which is technically not spiritual, which is good. Philanthropic activity is good. Krishna do encourage it. In 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, you can see the act of giving, it is really good. Dana, it is very, very good. Tapa, very, very good. So, because they purify, Krishna says, even great devotees it purifies, even great sages it actually purifies, it's mentioned. So, that's why even for Brahmana, Patan, Yajan, Dana Pratigraha, he has to accept charity, he has to give charity also, even for a Brahmana, what to speak of others. So, somebody who is in the social order, it's actually given in the scriptures, somebody who is even in the highest order, in terms of their consciousness, even they are supposed to give. So, charity, anyone and everyone can give. But Prabhupada says, where did they start, what do they want to achieve, and where did they finally end up? That's the point here. So impersonalists, even though they may say, I'm not going to do any activity, I'm going to Brahman, they go to Brahman, but then because it feels very boring there, then they come down. Prabhupada in one place says about Brahman, it's very lonely. Prabhupada says, have you got this experience when you are surrounded by so many people, you still feel so lonely? Somebody may have so many, friends online, but then, they may still feel very lonely in life. So Prabhupada says it's very, very lonely in Brahman, because everyone is just there, there is no interaction at all, and they just sit idle, nothing, no activity at all. So that's not really very encouraging, very conducive for the inherent nature of the soul. Somebody who is in the lowest stage of life, they try to extract some joy out of material things. So that is called Jadananda. Somebody who is trying to derive happiness from lower material sense objects. Okay, so that is Jadananda. Above Jadananda, after somebody comes to experience a different material happiness and they think, nah, this is not going to help me, and they give that up, they go to one level up. So one level higher than Jadananda is Brahmananda, Prabhupada explains, when somebody goes to Brahman platform. But then something higher than even Brahmananda, because Brahmananda, Prabhupada says, is very lonely, there is no activity. Higher than that is Premananda. If somebody can develop some attraction for Krishna, somebody can develop love for Krishna, that is higher, Premananda. And Prabhupada says, actually there is something higher than Premananda also. And Prabhupada says that is Sevananda. One who is doing devotional service to the Lord, the joy that comes out of that, Prabhupada says, that tops the other three. There is lower level Jadananda, then above that is Brahmananda, above that is Premananda, and above that is Sevananda. So simply by serving devotees, simply by serving Krishna, simply by serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada, simply by doing devotional service in whatever capacity we can do, one experiences a joy which far, far, far outperforms, far, far, far outweighs the joy that is actually derived by any of the other three means. So we have to understand that doing devotional service, that's the topmost platform. In one place, Brahmananda Prabhu himself actually says in one memory that Prabhupada once said that we do preaching in material world as much as possible. Let us distribute these books. Let us share this knowledge with others. Prabhupada says, because in spiritual world, everyone is a devotee. You can't do that. Prabhupada says like that. Because preaching is something you can actually do only in material world. Of course, in spiritual world, Prabhupada says, Machitta mat gata prana bodhayanta parasparam katentascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Krishna says, the thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, and they always enlighten one another by conversing about me, and they derive great pleasure in that. So in pure devotional service, that's what one does. However, Prabhupada says, this sharing of Krishna consciousness with other people, especially the fallen conditioned souls, Prabhupada says that joy we can experience only in material world. So let's waste no time in distributing this Krishna book with everyone, and simply by reading this, as you can see, there are stories. We are already in the story, but you can see Prabhupada how so intelligently has weaved these philosophical points in this storybook. O lotus-eyed Lord, their intelligence is contaminated because they fail to meditate upon the lotus feet of your Lordship. As a result of this neglectful activity, this is page 33. As a result of this neglectful activity, the impersonalists fall down again into the material way of conditioned life, although they may temporarily rise to the point of impersonal realization. That's what we were saying. So from material activity, they give up, take to the process of impersonal realization, go to Brahman, feel lonely, and then they come down, become philanthropists again, and they do some material activity again, coming back. So the original mission is to go back to the spiritual world, which they couldn't attain. So that's what Prabhupada is mentioning. Now the analogy which I was mentioning about Bhakti Vidyapurna Maharaj is, in one class he says, Brahman realization is like, let's say you stay in this room, if suddenly a fire comes here, you want to run out of the situation, tough situation. So you run out, you go to the street. And then Maharaj says, now what? You have come out of the danger, but then you can't just live in the street forever. So Maharaj says that Brahman realization is like that. In material world, we are being tormented by these different waves of material existence. We couldn't, Anadrita Yushmad, Angreha it's given, that simply by being in this material existence, one get tossed over by these different waves of material existence. Now, if somebody gives up the lotus feet of the Lord, immediately they patantyado, Anadrita Yushmad Angreha it's given. Patantyado means one falls down immediately. As soon as one gives up the lotus feet of the Lord, one falls down. So when one falls down, then Prabhupada actually explains that now immediately they get tossed around between one wave and the other without having any particular goal, without having any particular destination. One just gets tossed around. But in this situation, if one takes up a Brahman realization, all that will do is temporarily it will raise them to the Brahman platform. But as I said, once they go there, it feels very lonely. They give up that and they come down. They are coming back again to the material world only. So technically, it's a waste of time to go through impersonal realization because it's going to bring down again. So it doesn't really count as a spiritual path in its strictest sense. Spiritual path means it's supposed to take us back to spiritual world. It's supposed to make us pure devotees of Krishna. If we can't do that, then it's not really spiritual path, strictly speaking. So that's what is mentioned here. Impersonalists undergo severe austerities and penances to merge themselves into the Brahman effulgence or impersonal Brahman existence. This is also another problem with the process of impersonal realization. The process itself is very difficult. That's one thing. Second, even the process doesn't give a permanent result. It gives only temporary result. On the other hand, Kevala Ananda Kanda, the Sushukam Kartum Avyayam, we Raja Vidya Rajaguyam, we say that Pavitra Midam Uddhavam Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmyam. It gives a direct experience of joy. That is Bhakti Yoga. Process itself is very easy and it guarantees that one goes back to the spiritual world. So in that sense also, Bhakti Yoga beats all other process. But their minds are not free from material contamination. They have simply tried to negate the material ways of thinking. So going back to the analogy, one has simply ran out of a place that has a fire. As soon as they go to the street, now they don't know what to do. What will they do? They'll wait until the fire goes off, again they'll come back. So what we have to understand is giving up activity is no solution at any point of time. Giving up activity is no solution, be it in the conditioned state or in liberated state. All the time, because the soul is very, very active in nature, we have to keep on serving the Lord. That's the only way. But their minds are not free from material contamination. They have simply tried to negate the material ways of thinking. That does not mean that they have become liberated. Thus, they fall down. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that the impersonalist has to undergo great tribulation in realizing his ultimate goal. At the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also stated that without devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot achieve liberation from the bondage of fruitive activities. Savaipumsam parodharmo yato bhakti radoksaje ahaitukya pratihata yayatma suprasidati. Unmotivated and uninterrupted devotional service. Only if somebody does that, yayatma suprasidati, then only the soul gets satisfied. If one doesn't do unmotivated and uninterrupted devotional service to the Supreme Lord, Savayam Pumsam Paro Dharma, this is the ultimate Dharma. Yato Bhaktir Adoksaja, to the Supreme Lord, whose name is Adoksaja, how should the quality of such service be? Ahaituki Apratihata. It should be unmotivated and it should be uninterrupted also. Ahaituki Apratihata Yayatma Suprasidati. If one does a devotional service to the Supreme Lord Krishna, which is unmotivated and uninterrupted, then such people will be very happy. In a room conversation, Prabhupada actually asks different devotees about how they feel about the process of practicing Krishna consciousness. Everyone shares their experience. So one devotee tells to Prabhupada, I do devotional service, but after doing devotional service, I'm not feeling very happy. Then Prabhupada laughs and he says, then that's not devotional service. Devotional service means we need to feel joy. And then Prabhupada actually explains from the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Shushukam Kartumavyam. It's something that is very, very joyfully performed. So many times, because of due to lack of art, it could be our time management, due to sometimes in our over enthusiasm we take up sometimes too much services, so much so that our health gets affected, sadhana gets affected, we don't have free time, we just run from pillar to post trying to do even things in the name of devotional service. That balance we need to learn to maintain properly, because Prabhupada says we need to be in this body as long as possible in order to purify ourselves. So we need to prolong our life in this body as much as possible. We should not neglect this body. This body is a gift of Krishna. This doesn't belong to us. It belongs to Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. So we have this practice, sometimes we don't feed the body properly, or sometimes we fall sick. We ask for forgiveness from the Lord that we have actually neglected. It's Krishna's body. We need to take care of it properly. So it's extremely important that we understand, and that's a good yardstick against which we can actually measure how we are doing our devotional service. Are we feeling happy? That's very important. If we are not, then even after doing devotional service, then most likely one of these factors could be the case, which is, for example, we may not be giving enough rest for our body, we may not actually spend enough time with the devotees, we may not have time reading Srila Prabhupada's books. So important. Prabhupada says, even to do devotional service, even to do deity service, one should be reading my books, because without reading the books, Prabhupada says, even somebody doing deity service in temple, they may think one day that this is a burden. So it's very easy for us, because we have to understand, and this is a point we have discussed before, but it's very easy we have to fall back into that trap, which is, if we don't constantly recharge ourselves hearing and chanting about Krishna's holy names, hearing and chanting about Krishna's pastimes, reading, associating with devotees, doing devotional service, if we don't do hearing and chanting long enough with good quality, then it's very, very easy for us to take this process mechanically, because we would start to do things inside Krishna consciousness but without being conscious of Krishna. That means the same spiritual activity will become mechanical, and then it will almost feel like a material activity, and we tend to give up that very easily. So it's extremely important that we always be in the guidance of devotees. That's why we have the devotee care program. It's extremely important that we follow sadhana cards, practice Krishna consciousness, associate with the devotees. Bodhayanta Parasparam, Krishna says, we need to converse with each other in pastimes about Krishna. Prabhupada, in one conversation, actually in a room, Prabhupada is there when Prabhupada came to Australia, I think for the first time. He has his servant Upendra Prabhu, and Upendra Prabhu is actually talking to one other devotee about Australian Yatra. Some devotees there. Prabhupada calls Upendra Prabhu, and then Prabhupada tells Upendra Prabhu, you are wasting your time talking Prajalpa. Then Upendra Prabhu says, Prabhupada, but I was talking about only devotees. Prabhupada says, anything other than Krishna is Prajalpa. Sometimes it's very easy in the name of talking with the devotees also, we can talk anything under the sun, but they don't count as devotional service. It's prajalpa. The problem with prajalpa is they sap our spiritual vitality. The enthusiasm which we have for hearing and chanting and for doing devotional service, they suck that away. Now what the problem is, after, if you indulge in prajalpa for a long time, after some time we ourselves can actually feel that I don't feel enthusiastic so much now to open the book and read. Anyway, might as well sleep. We tend to think like that. Now, and we may be wondering what happened, just 15 minutes before I was feeling very enthusiastic that I'm going to read, and then I received one phone call. I was just talking to another devotee about a third devotee only. But as soon as you put the phone down, we will find our inspiration died out already. That's what happens. In between, what had happened is that the prajalpa started, and whatever little enthusiasm we had for reading the scriptures or chanting, having some good quality rounds, or even hearing a lecture, something like that, it was taken away. It was already sapped. So then we can't do much with that. Then again, even in that scenario, we have to force ourselves, and then we have to correct ourselves. Yes, I wasted the time there. Let me stay focused. So let's bring this culture of discussing about Krishna, because this is what Krishna wants us to do, because he knows that this is the only practical way for us to stay focused in this process. Actually, there is no other way. And Prabhupada has actually given us this instruction that simply by reading his books, all knowledge about Krishna will be there. We can easily understand Krishna. As we were saying, knowing about Krishna is one thing, but understanding about Krishna is a completely different thing. So knowing about Krishna, it's not a matter of memorizing some verses. It's not a matter of knowing some pastimes. It's not a matter of giving good classes. It's not a matter of any of that. Knowing and understanding about Krishna means how we are pleasing Krishna, and how Krishna, having pleased with whatever little services we actually do, how much he reveals himself. That is what understanding about Krishna means. So the statement of Lord Krishna is there in the Bhagavad Gita and in Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll read that again. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that this is page 33, that the impersonalist has to undergo great tribulation in realizing his ultimate goal. At the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is also stated that without devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot achieve liberation from the bondage of fruitive activities. The statement of Lord Krishna is there in Bhagavad Gita and in Srimad Bhagavatam. The statement of great sage Narada is there. And here also the demigods confirm it. So 3 places Prabhupada says. The Narada Muni says that in Bhagavatam, demigods say in Bhagavatam, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Persons who have not taken to devotional service are understood to have come short of the ultimate purpose of knowledge and are not favored by your grace. The impersonalists simply think that they are liberated, but actually they have no feeling for the personality of Godhead. They think that when Krishna comes into the material world, he accepts a material body. They therefore overlook the transcendental body of Krishna. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Avajananti Mam Muda. In spite of conquering material lust and rising to the point of liberation, the impersonalists fall down. If they are engaged just in knowing things for the sake of knowledge and do not take to the devotional service of the Lord, they cannot achieve the desired result. Their achievement is trouble they take. That's all. So we see stories of, for example, Shaubari Muni, Vishwamitra, great sages who have practiced celibacy, who have sat in meditation in samadhi. One was for 10,000 years, another one was going underwater. Nevertheless, they couldn't attain perfection in their first attempt, or they couldn't attain perfection until they took shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. So unless somebody does devotional service, one cannot actually go back to the point of getting eternally liberated and to stay with Krishna and to be fully engaged in the service of Krishna. So we'll finish there. We'll continue from page 34 onwards next week. Thank you so much for your kind attention. We'll see you next week. Gaura Purnima is coming soon on 29th of March. It's a Monday. So that's a big event. We are definitely looking forward, because after one whole year almost we have opened the temple. So that's the biggest festival, and after that we will get going full on with our celebration for their Lordships Shri Radha Gopinath's 50th anniversary festival. I was talking to one devotee. I was going for a program. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. He was driving the car, and he was actually telling me that he would be 75 years old when we celebrate 100th anniversary here. He was asking me how old I would be for the 100th anniversary. I was telling him I'll be 5 years old then, because we have nothing to dream about. We have no other desire but to be engaged in the service of Shri Radha Gopinath, and our only prayer at their lotus feet is we always stay with them, we always remain at their lotus feet, and we always be somehow or other engaged in their service. Let that be our only meditation, let that be our only prayer. Sthiti seva gatriyatra smritischinta stutir vachaha bhuyat sarvatmana vishnu madhyam tvaicha sthitam. May every word that we speak, may every act that we actually do, may every step that we take be for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. May every step we take is for pilgrimage. May every act we do be devotional service. And may every word that we speak be in glorification of Shri Radha Gopinath. Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki jai. Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai. Shri Gauranitai ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Krishna book ki jai. Devotees in Mayapur TV, YouTube and Facebook ki jai. Devotees of Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki jai. Samaved Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki jai. Jai Nittai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Thank you so much for your kind attention. We'll see you next week. Hare Krishna.